Earlier in this chapter, we looked at a for loop. A for loop executes a set of statements a fixed number of times. We told it how many times to execute the loop or to iterate through those statements in the range value. But sometimes how many times a loop needs to iterate is unpredictable. Sometimes we want that based on a certain condition. And when we give the loop a condition, the loop can stop when that condition becomes false. Sometimes you can also have the user enter a special value called a sentinel value. We looked at that in JavaScript that allows the loop to quit or to stop. So you have to be careful when it comes to while loops and not get stuck in an infinite loop, because if your condition never becomes false, then your loop continues to iterate and you'll get an infinite loop. Let's practice a while loop by using the example on page 87 in our book. So let's get a new script window, and we're going to prompt the user to enter numbers that we will then sum and give the total of. But when they're finished entering numbers, they just press enter to quit. So let's see what this looks like. Let's create a variable called this sum, and we're going to set it equal to 0.0, and that way the Python will read it as a float value. Let me go ahead and save this. Let's do a file save as. You save it in your chapter 3 shared folder, and let's save it as some practice. Some practice. That's some practice you got going there. Okay. Let's create a variable called data, and we're going to store what happens when the user enters a value. Now we're not going to convert it to a number here because we're not sure if they're going to enter a number or if they're just going to press enter to quit. So enter a number or just enter to quit. All right, now we'll start our while loop. While loops start with the keyword while and then some sort of condition. So we're going to say while data, which is what the user enters, is not empty. Okay, so just do that. So as long as they're entering something else, then the loop will continue. Just like with for loops, just like with if statements, all of the code that you want to execute while the loop is iterating should be indented, okay? So let's say we're going to create a variable called number, and it's going to convert whatever the user entered to a float, okay? Then we're going to add that number into the sum and take the sum, add it to whatever the user entered, and store it back in the sum. Okay, so whatever the user entered is added to whatever the value of sum is and then stored back into the sum. Then we'll ask the user again, input, enter a number or just enter to quit. All right, once the loop is finished, we want to print the sum is, why do I keep adding an E to that? Is the sum. Okay, let's press F5 and see if this works. Okay, enter a number. So I'm going to enter 1. I'm going to enter 2. I'm going to enter 3, and then I'm just going to press enter, and that should stop our loop. So it added 1, 2, and 3 and stopped the loop and printed the sum is. The while loop is also called an entry controlled loop because its condition is tested at the top of the loop.